And it says you need to turn on sharing on your side, I think, too.
Let's see here. Yep, let me. All right, you should be able to share now.
Yep. That'll look like it's supposed to you guys.
Looks perfect.
I don't. Oh, there it is.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. It's 1 after the hour here, so appreciate everybody jumping on with us to go over a webinar that we're going to be doing today, from data to decisions. So leveraging the Ekos data warehouse. So we'll go over a quick agenda, do some quick introductions as well, and then we'll jump into the webinar. So again, yeah, we'll touch on who we are, what EDW is. Then we'll have Jeremy and Teddy do a deep dive kind of on the insight demo side, sales and operations. And then we'll finish up with next steps, data viz, and then also do a Q&A as well. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. I'm Alec Johnson. I'm the solution engineer, head of industry here at Ekos. I've been with Ekos over 10 years now, done multiple roles within the company, kind of started when we had less than 100 customers, and now to where we're at now. It's been a wild 10 years, wouldn't have changed it for anything. And obviously know Teddy and Jeremy throughout the industry, great guys to work with, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? I'm Teddy. I'm the VP of Brewing at Society Brewing Company. I've been in the industry for about 15 years, Society for 11. We've been using Ekos for about 9 years, and we're sort of just beginning our data visualization adventure. We're probably about 6 months in here, so we're super excited with what we've started, and we're looking forward to the future with it. So I'll send it to Jeremy.
Cool. And that's my floating head on the screen there. My name's Jeremy Carney, and I'm founder of Central Coast Analytics. I have about 20 years working with data, and the last 2 focused primarily on craft breweries. The basic idea really being able to connect to any sources of data that a brewery might have data in, bring it all into a single spot, combine it, enhance it, and then display it to them in interactive dashboards. And you guys will see some examples of this as we move through it a little bit more. Okay, so as kind of the star of the show that we'll be talking about, Alec, do you want to walk everybody through a little bit more of the EDW?
Yeah, absolutely. Want to give a quick overview. Hopefully a majority of people on this webinar already know what it is, but do want to just give kind of a quick refresher, give a quick overview of it as well, talk about a few key features, and then how to leverage that data. So the enterprise data warehouse with an optimized data module for intuitive use. The EDW, it's going to simplify reporting and also make it easier for you to connect your data to external tools such as Power BI, Tableau, Excel. This is really going to empower the craft producers to gain deeper insights and then ultimately make smarter decisions based on that data. So a quick overview of what we'll talk about. We'll talk about the Ekos data sets. So we'll dive into this in a few slides, but as you'll see here, we have the 7 that are going to talk about the purchase orders, inventory receipts, inventory, the inventory adjustments, production, invoices, and also VIP. That's going to be an automatic nightly sync into the data warehouse. So that's going to be a clear and easy way to understand that data model and then with built-in relationships. And then ultimately that sync, you're going to be able to get use cases out of that visualization, reporting, and then also business intelligence as well. So a few of the key features that I do want to touch on, scalability. So that's going to automatically adjust storage and compute resources based on demand. Being able to manage services so that a provider is going to handle the maintenance, security, backups, and then also the updates. The data integration, it's going to connect to various data sources such as ERP, CRMs, and external APIs. Real-time and batch processing. It's going to support both the real-time analytics and then also scheduled data loads. Advanced analytics and AI. It's going to allow users to run queries, generate reports, and then ultimately leverage that AI insights. And finally, the cost efficiency. So being able to pay as you go pricing, it's going to eliminate the need for those large upfront investments. So on the next slide, smarter way to leverage that data. So you're going to be able to optimize the data model. So it's going to be built with ease of use in mind. That way, the intuitive data model, it's going to simplify the data access and reporting, ensuring that you can quickly find and analyze the information that you need. You're going to get enhanced data access. So don't have to worry about doing those manual imports anymore. EDW data is going to provide the direct real-time access to your Ekos data, ultimately saving you hours of work each week. The seamless integration with reporting tools, so you can connect to popular reporting tools to ultimately utilize advanced visualizations, real-time dashboards, predictive analytics, custom calculations, and being able to leverage AI. The automated data workflows, so it's going to automatically sync your Ekos data into other data sources in your reporting tools. That ultimately is going to enable unified reporting across systems, data enrichment through integrations with external databases, and then faster, more accurate decision-making. And then ultimately, the time-saving efficiency. So the data warehouse is going to do the heavy lifting for you, freeing up resources from repetitive data prep, and then allowing the team to focus on the analyst and strategy. So I do want to touch on these 7 data sets that we'll be talking on. I know Jeremy's going to deep dive into a few of these, but do want to just mention these are the ones that we currently have available. So the purchase orders, being able to analyze the data on what's been ordered, from who, at what price, and fulfillment rates. Inventory receipts, so being able to track and analyze the raw materials and product receipts in real time. Invoices, so having access to detailed customer sales. Inventory, so being able to view your inventory levels and trends across your business. Inventory adjustments, monitor and manage inventory changes for accurate reporting. Production batch, so contains detailed batch level production data, including the product type, start end dates, statuses, yield, ABV, gravity, enabling visibility into brewery efficiencies and quality metrics. And then one of our premium ones is our VIP data set. So gain access to VIP distributor inventory levels, and then also historical sales as well. Now with Jeremy, from your experience working with many craft beer breweries, why don't you give us some insights on how the industry is using that data?
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Alec. And I won't dwell on this too much. We'll get you guys into the actual demo of the solution really quickly here. Just wanted to kind of give an overview of what I've seen as kind of legacy data processes in the industry. The first word that comes to mind for me is that it was really fragmented. So breweries have data either between multiple systems, or even if it all happens to be in the same system, a lot of times it's still kind of hard to get all of those insights they needed. Everything was real fragmented. So what did this cause is people wanted to do their own data analysis. So what they were doing is manually dumping a lot of reports into Excel, kind of creating this big spreadsheet, Frankenstein style spreadsheet of all these different inputs pieced together to try to get some insights that way. But spreadsheets aren't really where you want to do all of your analysis on this stuff, because a lot of times it's at the wrong level of detail. So people don't have it at the right level that they can take direct action on. Sometimes it's hard to communicate out to the rest of the team. And that makes it real inconsistent with using data, right? Because it's manual and tedious. People it's not like their favorite thing to do. So in a lot of cases, it's like at the bottom of the priority list. And what all this leads to is that people weren't taking direct action on the data, right? So doing reports and KPIs was more of like a chore that people thought they had to do, but it wasn't necessarily leading to running a smarter business. So what we're trying to do as we modernize some of these data processes for breweries is really lead with insights into your business. So it's consolidating all that data. Everything's automated. It's basically systems talking to each other. People don't have to manually update spreadsheets or download reports. What this does is it makes it real consistent. Every single day, you have this new, fresh data out there, right? Ready for new decisions. All the data is visualized. You guys are going to see a lot of really good examples of that, where we try to use colors and indicators and show trends. So people don't have to be like a spreadsheet expert where they have to spend a lot of time head down in the spreadsheet trying to get these insights. We try to show it to them in such a way where it really stands out, that allows them to easily communicate it out to the rest of the team and then be able to take those smart actions that we want to lead people towards. So Teddy, like you mentioned before, we've kind of been working on some of this journey so far with Society. Do you want to just, without giving away all your secret sauce, maybe some insights that you guys have seen so far working through something like this?
Yeah, and just to back up a little, that Frankenstein spreadsheet really struck a chord with me. We definitely have exactly that. We've done a lot of, all the information is in Ekos, and we've found different ways to pull reports, and then we use a tweezer, is what we like to say. We'll spend time we can get all the information we need, but it's not real time, and we're spending so much time inputting the data. By the time it gets there, we're already behind the 8 ball making a decision on these things. So. And I'll be honest, at the start here, I was pretty skeptical. I'm the skeptical brewer on the call here. I was, it sounded amazing in conversation, but I really wanted to see it before we believed it, as far as, getting all of our data in one place and to be able to make these decisions. So, we're really interested, and honestly, already we've seen a ton of helpful insights here. So, and I think once we dive into it, Jeremy, it's going to be helpful to kind of point out those key things that we've really kind of been blown away. And really, we've only been in this for a couple of weeks, but we've already made a couple really big decisions because of it. So
cool. Sounds good. Okay. Well, instead of us just kind of talking about it, we're going to get in and spend a decent amount of time demoing some of the solution. As I'm getting started on this, want to put out the disclaimer on the data. So this is all starting with real brewery data, but then we're modifying it to not give away any proprietary information, right? So don't think you're like getting one over on old Teddy by figuring out what his cost of goods sold are. These numbers that we're going to be showing on the screen should be in the ballpark of what you would be seeing for your brewery, but it's not going to be exact Society data. Okay, so I'm going to switch my screen real quick. The first thing, and I'm not going to dwell on this piece of it as much, but this is kind of what some of it looks like more on the back end before we're actually visualizing the data, to give you a feel for what it looks like when you connect to the EDW. Everything I'm going to be showing is in Tableau, but like Alex said, Tableau is certainly not the only tool that you can use connecting to this data. You could use Power BI, Looker. There's a lot of other good data visualization and analytics platforms out there. Basically, what you do when you connect to the data is you'll see a list of different tables. These are all different tables that have your data. And then what you can do also is kind of prepare what can be called like a data model, which is taking a lot of those different tables, combining them, enhancing them with other dimensional information, whether that's coming from Ekos or outside of the system. Now you can start to infuse some of your own dimensions in here also that maybe Ekos didn't have. And ultimately prepare a nice data source that you can then hook up some of these data visualizations to. Like I said, I won't get into too much of this detail today, but happy to talk through people about some of that more in the future. Okay, so kind of switching now a little bit more to what some of the data visualization and dashboarding would look like. I generally like to start people with an executive summary view of the business, right? So this is taking a lot of that disparate data that's currently in Ekos and bringing it all of your main KPIs onto this single screen. I'll spend a little bit more time explaining this one because a lot of the other ones that we also show are going to be similar. So make sure you know what you're going to be looking at as we bounce to those other ones. Basic ideas across the top, we try to give brewery teams different controls to be able to filter or use parameters to see different time frames, different brands, really any way they want to segment their business. And then what we're doing down here in these different kind of KPI boxes is we're showing, you can see in this case, we're showing the last 4 weeks information because that's what we have chosen up here. You could look at different time frames if you wanted, but we're showing the overall total for that amount. We're showing how did that compare to the previous 4 weeks and then the same weeks last year. Sometimes that's a little confusing, so let me try to zoom in here and show it on this trend chart. So the last 4 weeks, which is what ties to this overall number, are highlighted in blue. And then we'll see the previous 4 weeks, which equates to this comparison. Those are these dark gray bars. And then those same 4 weeks last year are over here. So just a way to use color to try to draw people's eye to these different comparison points. And the idea of the executive summary is, let's say you only have 5 minutes to kind of spend on data in your business that day, is you can bring up a screen like this and you can really quickly get your finger on the pulse of the business. This won't necessarily like answer all of your questions or really get you to like the point of impact, but it now allows you to know, oh, what do I need to go focus on today? Or what do I need to talk to the team about a little bit more? Teddy, any thoughts on how a brewery team could use something like this? Did you catch that, Teddy? Oh, we lost our brewer.
I don't think he has any thoughts, but I think he'll be coming back on.
Yep. Okay, no problem. I'll keep moving here. I'll start on the sales stuff since he's not as deep into the sales side, and then when Teddy's back on, we'll talk more ops at that point. Okay, so we're going to give some different examples of some of the sales content we can get to. Like Alec mentioned, is we can get this a couple different ways. One is we can connect directly to the invoices going through Ekos. And then if you're also bringing in that VIP information into Ekos, then we can connect to all that depletion information that VIP has. And that's actually what we're doing in this demo, but it could also be directly from your invoices. So I'll dive into this first one here, which is going to be a bit more of like the high level overview of sales performance. And then we'll start to dive into one that's a little bit more detailed. Like I mentioned before, you have different controls and filters you can use. In this specific example, we're comparing year-to-date sales of this year versus year-to-date sales of last year. And again, all this data has been fudged, so you're not getting any society secrets here. What we're trying to do is show total results. We're showing some trending information, and we like to give people a few different ways to look at their trend. In this case, we're kind of showing this long-term trend, which is a few years of performance. Let's say we wanted to zoom in a little bit more on a short-term trend. So now we're looking at weekly results over the last 26 weeks. So a good way to see what's been happening more recently. And then I think another great point of analysis is to do a year-over-year trend. So on this one, what we're basically looking at is we're overlaying 3 different years of history. So you'll see 25 is in this dark gray line, 24 would be in this little bit lighter gray line, and then 23 in the lightest. So we can really see as we're moving through the year, are we up or are we down from previous years as we kind of work through the different seasons in a brewery. Then what we're looking at next is some dimensional information. So often we try to break your business down into as many different dimensions as we can, because that helps you kind of highlight what's going on. I'll explain this first one because again, you'll see a lot of these similar graphics on some of the other dashboards we look at. The basic idea is going to be we're using color to show are we up or are we down from the previous period. In this case, for this beer we're looking at, it shows our total sales year to date. It shows what % of our total sales this beer makes up, so almost a third. And then we're showing we're up 10% over last year. That's why this gets the blue color. That means we're up over last year. If it was orange, that would mean we're under where we were last year. And then you can kind of see this little indicator here that's showing what the last year level was. So what's really useful about a lot of these tools, right, is now you can really quickly be able to start to drill in and get to lower and lower levels of detail. So let's say we wanted to pick on this beer here, makes up about 10% of our sales, and it's down about 10%. I'm go ahead and click there, and you'll see it's going to now filter everything else on the screen for just that beer. And we can continue to take this down to lower and lower levels of detail. Let's say now I wanted to see just this beer in markets. So I'm going to click there, and you'll see we're going to continue to get that filtering going down further. One other thing we like to do is right now, each of these charts is basically sorted the dimension that has the largest amount of sales down to the smallest amount. But we can also change how that shows. So if we wanted to see like the areas where we're gaining the most over last year, we could do that. And then another useful thing is to see, well, where are we losing sales compared to that same time frame last year? So we can go ahead and click on something like that. And now we're getting some of these customers that have lost the most sales from last year. So kind of taking a step back, we first start everybody with this high level overview, and then a few clicks, we try to get into, okay, something I can go and take action on. And I'll show another real quick example of sales before we move to ops as we're trying to dive into those lower levels of detail. Is this one, as it's coming up, is we're going to be looking at a specific region. And in this case, we're looking at LA County. So what we're doing now is we're really mapping everything at the individual store level. So these are all based on individual street addresses. Sorry, it's a little frozen. Normally it would show how each of those stores is doing. What we would then do is be able to highlight a certain area. Let's say you had a sales guy kind of go into Long Beach down here doing some sales calls. We can go ahead and highlight that, and then we're going to see, like we saw earlier, everything else is going to filter down accordingly. So we try to give people the tools they need if they were going into this location to be able to see. Right now, we're still sorted on the ones that we've lost sales on. We could also show, oh, who have we gained sales with? And maybe we want to try to double down, with some of these accounts and in some of these areas. I'm just going to do real quick high-level overview on these other ones for sake of time today. But we have ways that we can segment your customer base by what's the total volume they're buying, are they growing or declining, what kind of price are you getting, what's the frequency of their purchase, what's the variety of their purchase. The idea being we want to allow you to be able to group all of your customers into like these different cohorts or different groups, and then you can design specific strategies to go and pinpoint each of those specific customers. And then finally on this one, we're showing even more detailed information at really the account level and the placement level. We're identifying what's new, kind of what's new demand that you didn't have in previous periods. Where are we growing? Where are we staying the same? Where are we declining? And then where are we losing people? So I know that was kind of a lot of information. Teddy, do we got you back on the screen?
I'm back. Sorry about the
Cool.
technical difficulties.
No problem. I know sales isn't your area of expertise, but you want to kind of talk through some of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, a lot of the sales analysis is helpful. We're coming into strategy for next year. We're thinking a lot about next year and what brands are working well, what brands aren't doing well, and where are they doing well and not well. And this is, we can tweezer this data out from VIP, but having this here allows us to, we can real-time pull data and ask questions and challenge questions about, different regions that are doing well or different specific beers that are doing well. And you can really tell a story to the whole team in real time, which it was kind of eye-opening for us. We had a meeting. It took us 2 hours to come up with 2 answers that you've come up with here. And I was able to do it in 5 minutes when I was poking around last night to validate what we talked about. But it had just saved a ton of time to be able to, that drill-in feature is unbelievable to really get that detail. And again, we talked about that heat map that you have. I was just talking to our sales manager about, if we're going to send somebody up to LA, it's a huge area. Let's focus on one area and we can figure out the beers that are doing well, what accounts are doing well or not well. And it just allows you to have a really nice setup hit list for them to go talk to people for. So, cool. Yeah, that's as much as I can talk about sales.
That's good. That's good. You can be a sales guy. Okay, let's get into some more operations content now. So I'm not going to show the executive summary again because we already looked at that. So first one we're going to pop up is kind of a production plan or production analysis. I know especially as we're heading into the busy season, a lot of teams are trying to get their hands around, okay, maybe sales are going good. Now, do we have enough beer either packaged or in our tanks to be able to support some of that demand? And we're trying to, with this dashboard, kind of help brewery teams get some of those insights on what they either need to package or brew more of. So I'll explain what this one's doing is we're showing all your different brands, giving a quick indicator of what percent of your total sales volume those are, putting that into barrels and cost of goods sold dollars. Now, what we're going to do is look at your last 4 weeks of sales, which is like your recent run rate, and get that down into a weekly average of what you're selling of beer. So in this example, 37 barrels of beer. Next up, we're going to convert all of your packaged inventory that you have on hand into barrels. And then what we're doing with those two numbers is we're showing, well, how many weeks of inventory do you currently have on hand? And in this case, it's showing we have about a half a week of inventory, which is a little bit low. I think in this, we set the threshold to at least have a week's worth of inventory. So that would show, we're kind of, running up against where we're getting a little bit nervous about this beer here. Next, we're going to try to show people, well, if we wanted to get to that 1 week of inventory, how much would we need to package? Following that, we're going to show how much do you have in your different tanks. So either what's ready to kind of go right away, or what do you still have in your fermenters? And then this final kind of point of analysis is going to be, okay, if we took all your packaged beer and what's in WIP in your tanks, and we then divided that by your normal weekly usage, how many weeks do you kind of total have in process right now or in inventory ready to sell? And then try to show, again, if it's too low or even too high. And maybe if something's too high, you definitely know you probably don't need to brew a lot more of it right now. And maybe that's something that you could run a special in the tap room or with your sales team to move some stuff that might be a little bit overstocked. Then we can, if somebody wanted to dive in a little bit more, now that we need to see, okay, how do we need to package this beer? We can dive into this specific one. We're going to look at each of your different packaging styles. We're showing that year-over-year trending that we looked at before, giving you some inventory information, how many weeks do you have on hand, and the inventory value. So trying to just make it pretty easy for your team to know what beers do we need to package, and then how should we package them. So Teddy, give me some thoughts on how you guys might use something like this.
Yeah, this sheet really fires me up when Jeremy sent this over. We use the forecasting sheet in Ekos. That's like our Bible. It gives us all of our answers across the board. And this is sort of like the visualization of it to be able to know immediately what we need to package this week, to be able to dive a little deeper. We know, those 2 beers that are at 0.5 weeks of inventory, we know we need to package those this week in order to get them on truck to get out the door. So we know we need to prioritize those. And then to click in a little deeper on the specific SKUs to kind of understand how things are trending. That's another piece that in the forecasting sheet, we don't necessarily see the trend adjustments. We just see the invoice adjustments. So having that trend understanding allows us to really dive a little deeper and just be smarter in aligning with the sales team and making sure that we're packaging the right product. Or, that quick look when we dove into that first beer, we could see we had plenty of sixtels. We don't need to add any more sixtels based on that. And it just gives you a quick understanding if you're doing packaging splits, or, a lot of times we'll have to move quickly, but this gives you a quick look that allows you to make quicker decisions and understand what's going on. So it's really exciting, this part.
Cool. Okay, so let's do a little bit more analysis. We'll do gross margin first and then some cost of goods sold analysis. So like a lot of this, we're giving the different ways you can slice and dice this across the top, giving you some other big indicators of how things are going on this topic. I haven't shown a scatter plot yet, so I'll kind of explain how we're using this. I think these can be really effective ways to get and do analysis on how your portfolio of beers is performing. So first up, we have this axis on the left-hand side. This is gross margin percent. So higher gross margin up at the top, lower at the bottom. And then we're basically plotting that against what's your total volume of beer sold. So higher barrelage over here and then lower barrels over here. So ideally, everything sitting up here, right, means we make a big gross margin and we're selling a lot of it. What would be a little bit more concerning would be one like this example down here, which is we don't we have a low gross margin and we're not selling much of it. So this might lead the team, to think about, well, do we need to increase price? Do we need to see if we can cut our cost on it? And maybe because it's pretty small volume, this one's kind of run its course and it's time to replace it with something else that might perform a little bit better. Then over here, we're going to give some more information. So really calling out each of those margins and barrelage. And then you'll see there's this little plus sign. And this will just allow us to drill in a little bit further. So now we can see an individual beer and then each of the different packaging styles within that beer and what the margin is on that. And not everybody, one other thing I'll just show real quick is instead of leading with brand, we can kind of switch this around. So if you were doing more of understanding how each of your packaging types is performing, we can kind of flop that. So now you'll see each of the different packaging styles on the scatter plot and first up on the chart and then leading with each beer underneath that. Teddy, I know you guys do some margin analysis at Society. Would this be helpful in the future?
Yeah, I cried a little when I saw this sheet. We built this sheet, but it took us about a year of development on the back end. And again, like I mentioned, the tweezer process. This is really the tweezer process. It's about a day of work pulling in all the data so then we can map it out to give us this exact understanding that allows you, again, to make quicker decisions, and you can dive a little deeper in to understand. So it's there's a huge value add, especially with the volume understanding, because a lot of times, if you take a really bad margin, but you're not selling that much of it, then you can be okay with it. But if you can see you're further to the right on that scatter plot and you're way lower, that's dragging you down, and it's immediately something that you and the production team need to focus on. Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. Like I said, the information's in Ekos, and we've been able to figure out how to pull it out, but this just makes it happen in real time, which is it's pretty special.
Cool. Okay, so let's say as part of that, you kind of maybe found some beers that you wanted to start to dive in a little bit more on cost of goods sold and ingredient costs. So that's the next two we're going to look at here as we kind of continue through this high level overview, right? And then be able to drill into different levels of insights to start to take action. So this one on the cost of goods sold, what we're looking at is showing what your cost of goods sold as your bright whip is, what the average per barrel is, what it is when you package it into cans, and then what it is when you package it into kegs. Some of these numbers don't quite line up because we're using demo data. Yeah, if we had this hooked up to live data, some of this would make a little bit more sense. And then we're basically showing how is it changing over time. Similar information, I won't go as deep into these, but we could highlight a specific beer and be able to see, are we up or down, and then how does that trending? How about this one, Teddy? Any thoughts?
Yeah, again, that same spreadsheet, we're currently pulling, each time we rack a beer, we're dropping it into our Frankenstein spreadsheet to say exactly how much it costs per barrel. And then we're running that through the system. But to be able to really click in here and see at a high level, especially trends of where things are going, because sometimes you got a gut feel if you change an ingredient, did it actually make an effect? You can see right away if you're trending in the right direction or a wrong direction based on any detail that comes across. So
cool. And then this last one we're going to look at is going to be as we get it down to that kind of lowest level of detail. So now we're looking at different ingredients that you're purchasing going into these beers. A lot of this is going to be similar to what we looked at on the production side, but we're lining up each of your ingredients. What % of your total spend is that? How much did you spend on it? How many pounds or eaches did you bring in? Then we're going to look at what your average cost was over that time frame across how many receipts. What was your last receipt? And then are you up or down on your last receipt versus your average? This specific malt isn't all that exciting in this case. But then we're lining up next to it each of our weekly receipts. Orange is like a lot of our stuff. Orange is going to mean that's going poorly. So that receipt, the cost of receipts that week was above what our average was. Some of these in blue would be a good guy. So I think a good one to highlight down here, it would be this hops B. So it's 10% of our total spend. We buy a lot of it. And we have a really good story to tell here, which is our recent purchasing of this is 27% or $5 per pound less than it was earlier in the year. And we can kind of pick that up in this trend chart, right? So a lot of these were up at this $21 range. And then more recently, it's been getting down into a much lower amount for this hop. So that's really good. Similar to what we saw on the production side, if we wanted to dive in, we can go ahead and click on it, and it's going to bring up another screen that's going to give us just a little bit more detailed information specific to this hop. So how much have we been buying and bringing in over time? What has that cost trend done? And then getting into some usage amounts. So how much are we actually using of this each week? Along with some inventory values, how many weeks we have on hand, and then what our average over the last 4 weeks has been. Okay, Teddy, I know you guys spend a decent amount of time going through kind of ingredients and negotiating for better prices. How would something like this help you guys out?
Yeah, honestly, this was the sheet that we were able to make immediate changes on right away, just from looking at it. You know, one, it's validating that cost of goods is a great chart, but if you can't validate that the information that's going into it's correct, then you're sort of you're making decisions not necessarily correct. Where when you go to this sheet, you can see what invoices are coming in and you can make adjustments. So like the hops B that you discussed there, you know, we'll negotiate that a year in advance, but you don't know actually when it's going to come through the wash. And then to be able to have the graphic understanding of making that adjustment, it's a really helpful story that you can tell to finance, and you can tell to the team as well of the things that you're focusing on that move forward. Another piece was we adjusted our half. We went from half flap to full flaps. It's not visualized here, but we could see the trend adjustment. And so it just allows you to validate that decision that you made along the way. You know, it's easy to negotiate something and then put it into place, but this allows you to go back and point to something that says, look, here's a piece that we negotiated, here's the cost that changed, and this is how we're making meaningful adjustments across the board. Yeah, and another thing that it's funny, combing through this, getting a little deeper into the weeds, we've been able to see if we're booking things incorrectly or if we're receiving incorrectly. You know, one of our products halved in price, and I was like, oh, that's amazing. This is so good. And then looking a little deeper, it was because we were receiving half of what we were getting invoiced. So it was causing that number to look a little bit off. So there's some validation that goes in here too. You can sort of look at something and you're like, well, we didn't negotiate that. That shouldn't have changed. I'm certain that price, it probably has increased based on the year over year. So you can sort of go in and validate that, which again is making sure that what's going through the wash to your P&L to all the accounting is actually correct. So it gives you it's a really nice visual snapshot for something to dive into. In fact, right before this call, I found something that didn't look right. And I'm like, I think we either posted an invoice incorrectly or something came through, and then we'll work it out so that before it goes to the P&L and we start making decisions on incorrect data, this allows us to validate sort of how the ship is moving forward. So this is pretty slick. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, cool. That's a great example. Okay, so that's kind of where we are on the live demo. So kind of taking a step back to what are some of the things we were trying to solve by bringing data into a system like this and visualizing it, is instead of it being scattered, we're bringing it all into a single spot, making it easy for people to understand, drill into their business to get to that right level of detail. And again, what we're really trying to do is not just create pretty charts and graphs on the screen, although I do like doing that also, is to get people to what do we need to work on today to really move the needle and improve business performance. So with that as our demo, Alec, I'm going to pass it back to you, and you can let people know if they're interested in learning a little bit more about getting signed up on the EDW, and then we'll start to wrap this up and then take some questions from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, Teddy. That was very informative, and hope everybody realized that that's great information that you've all passed along. Yeah, just kind of want to talk about the activation process, kind of the support that we offer as well for this. So if this is something that you are interested in, obviously first reach out to our team. You can reach out to sales@goekos.com. We'll be able to help you out there, but just kind of give you a step-by-step process of what the implementation process looks like. So step one, you're going to confirm your EDW users. So you'll submit the names and email addresses of any user who's going to need access to EDW. And just for a reminder, we offer unlimited users. So whoever you'd like to have access to it will be able to. Step 2 is going to be the database and user setup. So our team's going to create your databases, load your historical data, and also sets it up for your users. The users will be able or will get an email to connect to EDW, and then the user will have to accept that invite. And then step 3 is going to be the Azure VPN connection. So once that invite is accepted, Ekos will follow up with the steps to connect to a free Azure VPN. That is going to allow the user access to the reporting environment. And then just a couple things on our support. So once that activation is complete, we're going to provide your team with the initial walkthrough session. That call is going to include a rundown of the data model based on what data sets that they choose. Again, those 7 that we touched on earlier. Overview of the relationship between the tables, open-ended time to discuss team questions and guidance on the initial build out for any reports that they're most interested in. We also have a long-term resource at Ekos. A lot of you probably know Hunter from our team. He's our principal data integration engineer. So he's going to be able to assist with any technical questions and troubleshooting throughout the process.
I can just chime in a little bit from getting society set up over the last few weeks. Real easy to work through. Hunter is super helpful and useful. I don't want everybody else taking his time because I like him when he's my own personal question answerer. But yeah, he always goes out of his way to answer any questions as quickly as possible. So definitely can't speak highly enough of him.
He's great. Just don't reach out to him next couple of weeks. He's on a European vacation for the next couple of weeks. So he's going to be enjoying that time.
Good. Okay, cool. And if kind of on the data visualization side, so Alec walk you through how you get connected to the raw data on the EDW. If you're interested in a little bit of support or just talking through, sharing some ideas on how to visualize some of this data, I'm always happy to talk to anybody in the industry. Even if we don't work together, I'm happy to share some thoughts, hear about what you might be struggling with data, doing well with your team, and I can certainly offer some insights that I've seen others use either successfully or maybe some areas to watch out for with how I've worked with people in the industry so far. And I work with all types of data. So today we mainly looked at what wholesale and operations, right? But also spend a lot of time with taproom data, financial data, labor. And it kind of follows the cycle that I have up on the screen as we connect to the data, we visualize it so it's easy for your team to use. Then they can do that analysis and then finally take those direct actions really to improve your business performance. So please reach out. I'd love to talk to you guys. And then before we get on to questions, Teddy, can you kind of wrap us all up and bring us home with some of your thoughts?
Yeah. We're just super excited about the possibilities. I came in, like I said, at the top of the hour here as the skeptical brewer of what could be done here. And really, we've been talking about this data life cycle for years. And finally, this is allowing us to get a little bit more traction, to communicate with the team, make a decision, watch it come through the wash in real time. I'm sorry. We've basically built this massive data system that does give us a lot of the answers that you're pulling on the operations side. But what this gives us back is our time, and it gives us real-time information. It takes a day to pull out all the cost information to plug it into this big spreadsheet that we built. And now we can get it on a nightly basis. When we package a beer, we can get an answer on the overall cost of goods analysis pretty quickly. And yeah, like I said, in a couple weeks, we've been able to make some meaningful decisions, and it's aligning our sales team. And again, when I talk to our finance team about why we should do this, they're like, well, we already have all this data. We do have all this data, but it takes 4 people multiple hours a week to keep it up to date. And then if somebody's out or if somebody's adjusted, we lose all that data, and then we have to pick up the pieces on the other side. Sort of we get fits and starts of good data. And to Jeremy's point from earlier, we're just spending all the time to get up to speed on the data. We make a quick decision and then we lose it all again once. It gives us the ability to have traction and to kind of challenge in real time what's working and what's not working. So we're definitely excited and interested in this process moving forward.
Cool. Thank you for that. And then I think finally, I don't know if any questions came in or if anybody have any live right now, but we have some time left. So certainly open to answering any questions or other thoughts people might have.
Yeah, we did have one come through from Brian, and I'll read it out here and let you answer it. So other data sources that are fragmented outside of Ecos, like direct labor costs, can those be imported to the data model as well as get live data change?
Mm-hmm. At this point, yes. Depending exactly what system you're using to kind of bring the data together. But yeah, for example, just kind of using the system we just looked at. So that was all the operations and sales data. Let's say for society, we also wanted to bring in their taproom data to combine that with sales, and then maybe bounce that up against labor, like you're suggesting, right? To kind of see where are we real productive with our labor and where we're not. So again, it kind of depends what tool set you're using. But a lot of the modern data transformation ELT type tools will allow you to connect to multiple sources of data, bring it all in together, combine it, do whatever you want with it, and then display it in systems like this. So it definitely should be possible.
Perfect. Let's see. Are there any other brewery management systems aside from Ecos that can plug into Jeremy's data visualization platform?
For me, basically, I'm kind of system agnostic, right? So a lot of brewery data, even though it is a little bit different in each of the different systems, it's all really tracking the same stuff. So try to set up a lot of this where I can connect to multiple different systems, get that data. I put it in like a common data model. So just something's called this in this system, it's called something different in another one. I just make that all make sense, and then it can pretty quickly be displayed in similar dashboards that we were just looking at in this environment.
Perfect. And I did see one in the chat about the cost. We do charge by the data sets. So please reach out to our team, sales@goecos.com. We can get you an exact quote based on the initial data sets that you feel you would need.
Looks like a QuickBooks question too. What about bringing data in from QuickBooks?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. QuickBooks, basically the answer to these questions, is it possible? It almost always is. QuickBooks also has a good API connection, which is basically where one system could connect directly to QuickBooks, all the backend data. So then it could be basically pulled out of there, combined with any other brewery data, and then displayed in this stuff. So QuickBooks is a real good financial system to work with in that regard. And all this stuff can also be done at kind of a less technical way, where if you didn't want to try to set up the full API, because some of that's a little bit scary, sometimes you can also just download some of these manual reports. And if you do have a data visualization program, you can hook that up to just a lot of data in Excel. It's not necessarily the most efficient way to do it, but especially if you're just getting started or trying to do some of this yourself and you get a little intimidated by some of these more technical setups of different systems, that's always a capability that your team could look to do also.
I'll just vouch. This is how we started working with Jeremy, was our big Frankenstein spreadsheet. We sort of handed it to him, and then he took it and built it in different ways to give us answers that we needed. And this Ecos piece has sort of just accelerated that thought process. So it's definitely doable. And asking, you ask Jeremy and he'll think about it for a minute, and usually he comes up with something that can give you an answer that you're looking for. It's a pretty fun process.
Especially when you play me with beer when I'm in your tap room, then
Yeah.
I become real easy to work with.
Looks like Sherry mentioned QuickBooks is now charging for access to their specific API.
Got it. I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that either, but
okay, well, there you go. Yep, so I don't have any way to hack around. They're charging for data. So if you didn't want to pay for that, like I kind of mentioned, it could just be you can send out like a weekly email of all of your raw data, consume it into a big database and connect to it that way. So that's kind of a little bit of a hacky way to not maybe do that full connection, but still be able to get access to some of that raw data. So happy to talk through that some more if you want to reach out.
Looks like we got another question in the chat. If signing up for EDW, would we expect to see similar dashboards to what we just saw, or does this require the hiring of an outside company like Jeremy's? You will be able to see similar dashboards that we can provide. Obviously, working with a partner like Jeremy would be great for y'all. We can obviously help with that on the eco side. But again, yeah, if you do choose to work with Jeremy, obviously Teddy can vouch. He does great work. So I'll kind of let you talk about that, Teddy.
Yeah, so I haven't seen, honestly, Jeremy set up the back end piece of it's mostly just raw data that's coming from Ekos, right? And Jeremy we were intimidated by the raw data. So it was helpful to have Jeremy to kind of visualize it for us. So I would definitely recommend that if you're going down that avenue, it's definitely helpful to have somebody to do it who understands it.
And again, we offer that as well at Ekos, but again, yeah, Jeremy offers his services as well. Let's see. Can you tell me again who? Oh, perfect. Yep. If you want to quote for the data sets, yep. Ali put in the chat, sales@goekos.com for a quote on that. All right. Give it a few more minutes on the questions. I know got about a few minutes left. And while we're waiting, again, just want to thank everybody again for coming. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Teddy, for going over that. I know it's one thing for the Ekos team to talk about it, but it's another thing to actually see it in action and kind of see it in the wild. All right. We'll give it another few seconds if we have anything, and if not, we'll wrap it up. All right. Well, again, appreciate everybody coming. Appreciate the questions that we did have. Again, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Teddy, again. And again, if you do you have any questions for the Ekos team, for Jeremy, for Teddy, I'm sure they won't mind being reached out to as well.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks all.
Cheers.